getting an attitude. And
how am I getting an attitude?
I don't understand why we have an attitude. Again,
how am I getting an attitude? How am I getting an attitude?
It's the way that you're speaking to me. When it comes down to the fees, that's
what I'm saying. Like, y'all try to control my tone. But when I don't understand something, I'm going to try to get some type of understanding. I'm not even yelling at you. I was not yelling at you. It's just that you don't have an answer, and that's why you're frustrated.
If I have asked you to leave and you're not leaving the premises that I've asked you to leave, I can then call the police. Do I need to call Brian in here?
Because you can't answer me. You want to call the police because you can't answer me. I have a question, and this is about my rent. So you're going to call the police because you can't answer a question about my rent.
Let's start from the beginning. Okay.
I'm not threatening you or nothing. You talking about call the police.
Because when somebody asks you to leave and then you don't,
I live here, so how are you telling me? How am I trespassing of the building?
To go ahead and go, Aisha. But let's start from the beginning. That's fine. Okay. You're asking about rent. You aren't unable to pay rent.
Okay, so I just got off the phone with the administration on top of the housing. Just a minute. Okay, so I called HUD, and basically I was directed to PBCA, and PBCA is Performance-Based Contractor Administration. They're basically the supervision of the property owners, where you can basically call out to them whenever you feel like discriminated as a tenant, or you feel like you don't understand with, their actions taken upon you. So I called them, and I just I called HUD that referred me to them, and both of them. I told them about, my manager, the situation, the basically miscommunication and stuff like that. I told them about the 30-day eviction notice, for having a verbal disagreement with the office worker who felt as though I had an attitude when addressing my rent situation. She felt as though she needs to call the police because of me raising my voice. So HUD basically referred me to the professional base contractor administrator, because she said that, that's more of a discrimination, that falls in the lines of discrimination and stuff like that. So they sent me this email, and this is all the information that you would need to be aware of when you contact them. They did address eviction court as well, so I can take it into eviction court. I could take this information to eviction court eventually once I hear back from her. Right now she's talking about a notice. She requested a notice from my housing. So the notice of what they sent me, they have to send a copy to them so that they can look into it furthermore. So right now this is where I'm at with the update on my eviction. So yeah, and then she was like, oh, who said that? When she was asking me about, when she didn't understand why the girl wanted to call the police just because, I was being verbally aggressive towards her, or because she couldn't answer my question, so she didn't understand. She was like, why? And then I gave her a little description of the lady at the office that, basically took it upon herself to go and cause, to basically put more onto the situation than it had to be. So, yeah, with that being said, that is where I am now, and we will see how this goes. I took a thumbnail. Bye. So, I just caught taking a rest. women's shelter, and they told me to call back tomorrow so that I can do an intake with them and check the availability so that it sounds like, I can be leaving soon. I could be getting to a shelter within, the next week or so. So, yeah, I just feel like when it's time for you to go or it's time for you to leave, life is like this. Stuff that don't make sense happens, such as me getting eviction notice for this little tiny incident that may not make sense. But what may not make sense in civilization or to society may make sense, to God. So this can be, God's doing. God is trying to move you so that whomever is meant to be in your position now has the chance or the opportunity to be in their position. When it's time for you to move, it's time for you to move, you know. And that's when I said, if it don't make sense, it makes sense to God. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to accept whatever is going on, whatever is happening, and I'm going to use this as a chance of me having a choice in the matter. Even if I get, the corporate involved and they figure it out and they say, oh, well, this can't happen, at least I have a choice to still leave and go to a shelter because, it's my choice. If I don't want this, I don't want to keep dealing with this type of, I don't want to keep dealing with this. I don't want to keep being treated this way and walked all over and mentally just battered when I already know that mentally I'm struggling. And every time, I get a chance to sit down and kind of try to unwind my mind, here come another fight in all directions. So I feel like this is God actually pulling me and removing me from the situation, And I feel like this is what God is trying to do. And us fighting back as humans, this is what we know to do. We know to fight back. We're like, no, this don't make sense. I'm going to fight this. But in our mind, we are conditioned to fight back against this. May be a natural cause, and that's why it doesn't make sense, to the real world. The world we live in now, it doesn't make sense. But that's reason to believe that, God is working in your favor, even if you don't know it, even if it doesn't seem like this is not fair. This is not fair. Even if it seems like this is not fair, it is fair in a way that you can't see. You can't see what God is doing for you. But that's why God is doing what God is doing. If you was to see, then it would be easy. Like, oh, okay. But the fact that you don't see is strengthening your faith to when you come out of it, you're like, oh, now I understand. That's all it's about. So like I said, if they want to fight me for me, I have a choice. Just like I was recently removed from the waiting list. Well, I wasn't removed from the waiting list, but I waited 2 years on the waiting list, and they removed me because of a payment that has to be made 7 years ago, and it wasn't made because of so many reasons why. They took my washer and dryer, this and that. They talking about I owe this, I owe that. But all of that was supposed to be waived. It was supposed to be waived, but it wasn't waived. I got a legal aid to fight that battle for me. He said if I leave within 3 days, all of that should be expunged. Y'all can put her on a 3-year wait list, and then she can reapply. And they dismissed all of that. So then when I go back to reapply and I'm on a waiting list, now they're saying, oh, you can't get this apartment because of what happened 7 years ago. But all of that was supposed to be expunged and waived due to my legal aid. Yet they didn't listen. So I felt kind of down in the dumps about that because, like I said, I waited so long. And in order to be on a wait list, you have to be eligible. Therefore, I was eligible. If you're not eligible, they will call you. Like they called me previously for the Akron Metropolitan wait list. They called me and said, I couldn't be on the wait list due to my location. So they took me off the wait list. So I didn't, they don't have you waiting if you're not eligible. Because then when you're eligible, because then when the time comes around, something like this can happen. So it's just like they were wrong in that situation, but I chalked it up, and I was just like, you know what, God wants me to stay here, I'm going to stay here. I'm not going to fight with y'all. It is what it is. And I can still choose to fight that battle, just like my mom told me today. She was like, you can go back and you can fight them because they will impact your future later on. The fact that they're doing this now, you get into a shelter and you want to get into a wait list or a metropolitan, you got your child. They can do this all over again to you. And I'm just like, yeah, you're right. They can do it again, and they can keep holding me back. And if I don't fight it now, it's not going to be done until it's done. You have to act upon it for it to kind of move the situation. You got to apply some type of force for an object to move. So I'm thinking about that. I'm like, my other option was Section 8. I can't get on Section 8 because I've never been on Section 8 before. So if I do get into the shelter, I'll have that time to, make up my mind whether I can go in this direction. While I'm in the shelter, I can go in this direction and kind of fight off AMHA and this and that, because everything that I every chance that I get, it always go back to, oh, AMHA, do you approve? If they don't approve, they're holding my life back in the past because of whatever, that little $1,000 in damages, and but like I said, they owe me for what they took from me. So it's just like that type of situation. I could go back and fight that, but is it worth it? I could go into the shelter, apply for I'm trying to think, because I could go into the shelter and I could apply for Section 8 and wait on there. But 9 times out of 10, me going back into the shelter and not getting on Warren Metropolitan like I wanted to in the first place, I'm basically being put in the same situation where I'm about to go into the shelter, and then where's my next goal? I'm looking for income-based housing, again, while I'm on Section 8. Another income-based housing where this could be opportunity of me doing it the right way. It's a lot of people that are saying they got into these apartments income-based or based on their income. They didn't have to pay so much. The fact that I paid so much when I got here is because I was on Social Security. So they used that they used my Social Security plus whatever I had to pay my electric and this and that. So people is getting in here easy without paying much of anything, but I got in here because I already had everything. Like I had income and I had whatever was necessary, so I paid more than everybody else. So maybe this is my turning a new leaf to where if I get into another income base, it'll be based on my income. The fact that I barely had any income, it'll be based on that income. But I felt like, and that still don't make sense to me, how a lot of people is getting in here, how they getting in here, and the asking price is over $500, $600. Like this is kind of what I'm stumbling on. But like I said, I can do that, or I can stay here, and I'm just confused right now because, like I said, if I win this, then I get to stay. If I lose this, I have to go. So it's like the choice being made for me would be, if they say I gotta go, I gotta go. If I win the case, I get to stay. So I'd rather the choice be made for me. So I'm gonna sit around and wait and try to figure it out, because if I get into the shelter, I actually don't know what I'm gonna do going forward from the shelter. But I kind of can figure it out in a way, because if I get into a shelter, then I can kind of I don't know, but I don't want to go down that route. I do, but I don't. Like, I was talking about I can get help, with social worker and stuff like that, because previously I was on medications. I was disabled, and I have all my paperwork. And the fact that I have all my paperwork, I can go to court, or I can go to the the Social Security Department, and show them that I was recently, it was taken from me 4 years ago, and they can kind of work with me, and if like somebody told me that I can get a back pay for all of the years that they took from me, or I can just kind of just let them know where I'm at, and I can still receive services because they know this happened, or they know, oh yeah, you were a previous, Social Security person, and they can kind of fix their mistake in a way. So I could do that when I go back into the shelter, and just focus on my mental health, my Social Security, and my disability, and probably put all that back together, and then boom, I got income, and then I can get back into, and I'll probably get on the Social Security. I'll probably get on Section 8. Just because, no, I don't know, because I guess I could go ahead and get an income-based apartment, and it'll be, well, the fact that I would have that income around disability, and there's another approach that I want to take, because I did not know back then that I could get into an apartment like when I was disabled, I already had my apartment coming for me when I was in the hospital. So I wasn't disabled when I got my apartment. I wasn't disabled before I got into the hospital. After I had my baby, I became disabled, but I already had my apartment, so I didn't have a chance to really get into a mental disabled, apartment complex for only mental disabled people. So basically, I'm a mental disabled people putting myself in average people's situations and get treated like them. And, on Akron Metropolitan Housing, they was taking my income based off my disability. But when you're in an apartment, and they understand your situation about disability, they won't take as much as they was taking from me, in those places where I was considered disabled, but I wasn't living in disabled housing. So this time I can go to disabled housing. So now I kind of got a visual of what I can do. So get into the shelter, go figure out my disability, fight my disability. If I can get back on disability, if I can't, at least I got resources and I got help, and they can kind of work with me in that area, put everything back together again. 9 times out of 10, I might get back on. They might put me back on disability just because of my medication. So that's what will happen, because I'm a previous mental patient. I do have a chance of getting back on disability, and then going from there, financially, going from there in regards to housing, I can apply for disabled housing, mental disabled housing, get it all figured out and do it the right way this time. But I'm not going to kind of think about, I can do that. And then, so that's one option while I'm in a shelter. That's basically the only option right now, because I can't work with my son right there, and then I'm in the shelter. I'll have to figure out the shelter, like, do they got children care? Do they have children hours where he can be in little children, in a little place for children while I go out and work? I have to figure that out with the shelter. But yeah, this is basically me getting back on my feet and figuring out the situation. So that being said, that's all I have to say. I'm trying. Y'all have a wonderful Wednesday, and I will talk to y'all next time. Bye. Like, comment, subscribe, be notified, share at your own free will. Straight there. Bye.